As the seasons change, many people experience shifts in their mood and energy levels. And for some, these changes can be quite severe, leading to a form of depression that occurs at the same time each year, usually in the winter months. To help us understand more about seasonal affective disorder, its symptoms, and how it can be managed, we have Dr. Martin Levine, a family medicine physician with Optum Care Washington. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Kelly, for the chance to be here.
Yes. So first off, what is seasonal affective disorder?
So you have to understand in the context of normal life, everybody will feel sadness or down sometimes as the seasons change. That's a normal phenomenon.
Right.
But for some people, a percentage of the population, as the seasons change in the fall, in the winter, the magnitude of those symptoms are more severe. They're such that they affect not just how they feel, but how they function, how they manage things at work, their relationships with others, how they handle things at home. And so if you cross into sort of a threshold of those symptoms of sadness or low energy affecting you in that manner, that's when we call that a disorder called seasonal affective disorder.
Okay, so what are some of the signs and symptoms with it that we should look for?
So seasonal affective disorder is a subtype of depression. So the symptoms are the same. What distinguishes it from regular depression is that it follows this pattern of being linked to seasonal change. So the symptoms are feeling sad, low energy, maybe trouble thinking, maybe sleeping or eating too much, maybe a loss of things that are interesting to the person. They can't find anything fun to do. So those are all the same symptoms of depression, and seasonal affective disorder is this cycle where as the seasons change, the symptoms come back in a recurring pattern year after year.
And usually, like you mentioned, in like the fall or winter months when those like seasons and weather is changing. Is that correct?
That's the most common. There is a version of seasonal affective disorder which actually is in the spring.
Oh.
But you get the most press and most people hear about the one that's really in the fall. It affects by far the most people.
Yeah, and how is this diagnosed too?
So it's diagnosed like other mood disorders. Someone might go see a clinician, a doctor, a nurse practitioner, whoever they see for their care. And clinicians are trained to understand the story of the person's symptoms. So they work through a checklist of which symptoms does someone have, and then they work with the person to understand the severity. And what they're really doing is they're listening for sort of how many of these symptoms are present and how much it's really impacting the person. If it crosses that threshold of severity where it's impacting their functioning, like I mentioned before, then they would call that seasonal affective disorder.
And is that when you would recommend that they would call and go and see someone when they're hitting that threshold?
Yeah, if the viewers thought, hey, I've noticed that each fall for the last few years, or maybe even longer, I start to get really down, and it really weighs on me for several months and interferes with my life. That's exactly the kind of scenario when someone should seek help from a healthcare professional to sort it out and decide if it needs, if the person has it, and do they need some kind of treatment for it.
Yeah, and I know you've touched on this, but can you describe a little more on what causes seasonal affective disorder then?
The real answer is we don't have a clear cause. We have associations. So we see in the body, we think there's a connection to seasonal affective disorder and serotonin levels. We think there's a connection to melatonin levels. We think it's related to exposure to natural sunlight. But research is still ongoing to figure out a true cause.
And how is seasonal affective disorder treated too?
So if someone does meet that threshold of having seasonal affective disorder, there's a range of different things to do to treat it. So conventional antidepressants that we use for depression or anxiety work in seasonal affective disorder. In addition, counseling can help some people. Counseling can also have long-lasting benefits that help maybe manage it better in future years. And then lots of people have also heard of light therapy.
That's what I was yeah.
Which is kind of a cool thing. So there's a certain, power of sunlight, and sunlight does help people feel better. We can mimic that with not nearly as strong as sunlight lamps. They're inexpensive. People can purchase one of these lamps, and if they turn it on at about the same time each day and have it on for 30 to 60 minutes, maybe while they're doing some other activity. That alone is often just as good as taking antidepressant medicine.
Wow. Thank you so much for bringing all this information to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And to learn more about Optum Care Washington, please visit the website that you see right there on your screen.
This portion of New Day Northwest is sponsored by Optum Care Washington.